Hello and welcome to episode 88 of the Back Nine Six Pack. My name is Mitch, joined as always by my esteemed colleague Justin. How's it feel to have your team buy a national championship?
Oh my god, that take is so weak. It is so. I knew this was going to be a thinly veiled takes from you about how this is not a real national championship. You bought your team. For the record, I think Ohio State barely scratched the top five in NIL funding for their football team this year. Notre Dame happened to be one of the teams in front of them, as crazy as that sounds. But and there was some weird. I want to get this out there because there was some very weird like headlines going out there that were just blatantly not true. If you just do research, one is that somehow Notre Dame didn't spend any money on NIL. All those guys were there for free. Like that's what it made it seem like. It's like Ohio State's guys, $20 million. Notre Dame. Let's not pretend that Riley Leonard literally got like $2.5 million to go play at Notre Dame this year from Duke. So that was number one, and number two was like, oh, Ohio State's built on a bunch of transfers. It's like Notre Dame had more transfers than Ohio State did. It's like, how is it like? And literally, like, so the biggest thing about the NIL for Ohio State is they use like 95% of the money to bring back guys that were, second, third round draft picks that were like, look, you got one more year left. Like, we'll pay you to come back. You're going to make the same amount of money if you got drafted in the second or third round, but you get to play another year. So it was some weird headlines out there, and I'm like, dude, just do your research and you're like, find out this stuff is like, it didn't make any sense. So, but you know what? And Cincinnati radio guy Mouw said this. He goes, I want to buy a national championship. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll buy one right now if I can, So it's like, that's the new world we live in, though, right? Like, and it's only going to get wider. The gaps are only going to get wider. You're either spending over $15 million on NIL or you're not. And those are the teams that are going to be some of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to debate like where college athletics is as a whole. It's just like at this point, really not for me anymore. But I watch it. It's football, right? I'm gonna watch. But yeah, like finish. This is what the people were saying. I'm not saying this. Many people were saying this. Ohio State finished fourth in their conference. Didn't win the conference championship. Like it's one of those things where like I get it for the 12 team playoff. Like probably was a success outside of like the seeding and the bye week thing. It's probably better to have more teams than not. I think at the end of the day, like it's a net 1 or 0. It's probably a 1, right?
Yep. Yeah. So Ohio State losing to Michigan completely screwed up the seeding, right? Realistically, if they win that game and they go, even if they lose to Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, right? Let's just say they do. They're probably still going to be the fifth seed. They're going to play Indiana. Then now it's going to be like Ohio State, Georgia in the second round. So them losing, or it's going to be, Oregon loses, they would have been down on the bottom half, and it would have changed the seeding. And honestly, Ohio State losing to Michigan it just screwed everything up. Like they weren't really an 8 seed, they really weren't like an 8 seed. So it did kind of screw everything up. Realistically, they probably were a top 5 seed talent wise, but they got an 8 seed because they didn't play in their conference championship game and all that. So
well, I mean, the committee had them ranked 6th, and the only reason they got bumped back to 8 is because of auto bids for
yeah. You know what I'm saying, and maybe it's the auto bids. Maybe they do away with the auto bids, or God love Boise State, but they had no business having a bye. You know what I mean? Like right. No business having a bye. So, but it feels good. And I was talking to my dad last night. We get done watching a game, and I was like, in 2014, the run they had, it was like very unexpected. This was very unexpected too, but I'm like, it was crazy how we reacted. It was like, at first we were like, it was like a sigh of relief. It's like, oh God, thank God. Like everybody said they should have won it this year, and they actually did. Thank God we don't have to deal with like the people of like, they underachieved again or whatever. But I'm like, I sat there, I was like, we need to stop taking these things for granted. Like, I said, my dad was like, you've only seen 3 in your lifetime, right? Like there was another one, but he was relatively young. So I'm like, it's like these things you can't take for granted. You know what I mean? And,
no.
so I stayed up way too late watching way too much post game stuff and trying to soak it all in. I took 2012 Kentucky national championship for granted because I'm like, we got Coach Cal and we're going to do this again, and it hasn't happened since. So I would say this: that's my one advice. Like, there's not many dynasties, so when your team wins a championship, enjoy it. Like, really enjoy it. Don't think that it's going to happen again that easily. So.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at, we've talked about this with the Bengals at exhaust at this point. Like, got there in 2021 ahead of schedule, felt like the whole world was in front of us, haven't made the playoffs last year. So,
yeah, it's, we live in a world of, we've had some crazy good dynasties in a lot of different sports. Your Alabama and Nick Saban, your Patriots and Tom Brady and Belichick. That's not the norm, right? Like, doing that is not the norm. And so when people, when they win a national championship, they think like we're the next dynasty. It's like there's a 99% chance that you're not going to become a dynasty, right? So like the ones that I just mentioned. So that's the one thing. I think that's the one mistake everybody makes is like, this is like the building block of where we win 3, 4, or 5 of them. And it's like, it's going to probably be a while before you win one again. So, like if you'd have told me in 2014, hey, Ohio State's not going to win until 2025. And, oh, by the way, Urban Meyer's not going to be the coach of that team. I'd have called you an idiot. I'd have been like, you're crazy. That's no way that's going to happen. At that moment, I thought for sure that they'd probably win another 1 or 2 at the minimum with Urban Meyer. But it did bring up and this is the last thing I'll bring up about this, that next year's team for Ohio State after they won the national title brought all those guys back and lost to Michigan State on a last-second field goal. If a 12-team playoff, the same thing would have happened that year. That team, other than that one game where they just played like absolute crap, play calls were, they're throwing the ball in rain and weather and all this stuff, and they didn't run the ball, and they end up losing that game, and it's like that team would have beat anybody that year. It just they played one bad game and then got left out of the 14 playoff. So if that was a 12-team year, we might have been sitting in the same spot we were this year, where they were an 8 seed and go on to win. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of like what that continuity, to your point of, it's gonna be hard to have a dynasty, especially today's landscape. Like the teams are so different year to year, but like now you throw in the 12-game playoff, who knows what changes they'll make to it from here. Like it could be impossible to repeat.
Well, that and when you hit the transfer portal, yeah, like your chances of hitting on somebody, to me, because they played so much football, they might be a junior or a senior or whatever. Like you've seen enough film on them in college football that you think you have a good idea of what kind of player they are, but you can still miss on guys, right? Like so it's the transfer portal is all luck. Ohio State got lucky this year. Every transfer they brought in pretty much contributed to a certain point, some more than others, but they didn't really miss on a guy. So that has something to do with it too. So, but yeah, it's going to be real hard to repeat. I mean, when you have to play 3 games minimum, 4 if you don't have a bye, it's tough. You know what I mean? It's going to be real tough.
Yeah. Last thing we can say about this, I was kind of joking, but also like, nothing matters and nothing is serious anymore. I think, why don't we go ahead and just, if you were the defending national champion, put them in the playoff. It would have been so funny to see Michigan, Ohio State again. Just like, I'm sure they would have smoked them, but the psychological warfare that would have happened,
oh God,
would have been worth it. Like,
well, and you know what? What's funny about that is if you look at like the one side of the bracket, like if they were on the bottom half of the bracket and they had to play like a Penn State or Notre Dame, like, I'd probably take those chances. You know what I mean? Like they could have at least won a game. Were they going to win it all? Probably not. They just didn't have good quarterback play to win consistently, right? And we saw that throughout the year. But like they could have won a game. Like it'd have been cool to see, and it'd have been real shitty if they'd end up like playing Ohio State again. Just you want to talk about Ryan Day trying to get off a hump. I mean, that's his next mental block. I said that right after last night. I was like, this might be the one that gets him off his like national championship hump, and like maybe they try to string 2 and 3, 2 and 3 years or 2 and 4 years. My God, like the guy needs to win a game against Michigan. I know he's won one, but if he needs to win one to it's like you got to see the ball go in the hole, right? So it's like I think it's just like he hasn't seen the ball go in the hole for so long. It's starting to realize he's starting to think it might be impossible. So
yeah, no, I'm all for the chaos and the crazy of it all. So that would be an added little wrinkle. I think could be fun.
yeah.
But, all right. Well, if you survived the Ohio State rambling, my apologies to those of us out there, or those of you that are like me and don't too much care for that.
I appreciate you giving my platform to celebrate.
You have one of the two mics on this program, so you get to celebrate your team winning. So congratulations to you. I hope to know what that feels like one day. So if you're here, please smash the like button. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Rate, review the show, all that stuff. Follow us on social media at Back96Pack. We do have some fan mail to get to later in the show, so that as well. There's always that link in the description. Click that, send us a text, let us know what you want to talk about. We kind of talked through CFP stuff, but before we get off football, I just want to chat a little NFL football. I know you have some Lions takes to get off your chest. I could talk a little bit about the Ravens, perhaps. And then also just want to get to, we're down to the Final Four. Let's get some predictions out there. So let's start with the Lions.
So I said it. I said if they get in a tight spot, and maybe a game's not going their way, I said it could get away from them because they know what's at stake. You know what I mean? They know there's been a lot of losing in that town, and they got in a tight game and they got behind. They made a couple mistakes, and it was a snowball. And dude, Jaden Daniels, I mean, come on, holy shit. The dude is a stud. I'm like, part of me is like, God dang, I wish my team would have tanked last year for him. Further proves that Brian Kelly is a terrible football coach, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a daunting track record for Brian Kelly. He had Malik Neighbors on that team too, by the way, and they lost 3 games last year. I don't know how that even has happened.
Brian Thomas Jr. too.
Yeah, what in the world? Yeah. How bad of a football coach are you? I could have gone out there with an Xbox remote and done better than that. But yeah, I just the Lions, everything that I thought would if they got in a tight spot, it happened. I mean, they got in a tight game and that pressure mounted. The fans are getting anxious, and you start hearing some of the boo birds come out when stuff started going wrong. And I mean, look, I've grown up in Cincinnati, and you're a Bengals fan. A lot of those playoff games during Marvin, it was oh God, here we go again. One thing happened. It doesn't even matter. It could be a first quarter interception. You're here we go. And that's kind of what happened to the Lions. I mean, I don't feel bad. They turned heel this year, and they assumed that they were the big dog, and they just weren't.
And yeah, I mean, kind of lost in all this, to your point too, is just how good Washington has been, especially on offense, and defense has played a little bit better in the recent weeks, but did they just get first downs, dude?
That's
on
it.
Repeat. They're always getting first downs.
And I know when they, I went to that Monday night game, you were there too, and I don't know a ton about play calls and stuff like that, but what they were running didn't look overly complicated. It just works. And it doesn't. I don't think it's super complicated. And I know the Bengals. I can't remember who said that. I think Cam Taylor-Britt said it was they're running a simple college offense or something like that. And it's if it's so simple, then you should be able to stop it, right? I don't know. It's look, Washington and the Bills are the only thing that stand between what we said would be the worst outcome. And God, I hope both of them win, or at least one of them wins, so we get a little bit different matchup.
Yeah, to kind of tie a bow on the NFC side, I honestly like the closer we get to this game, the more I like Washington.
They just have nothing to lose. I mean, it was like the Bengals when they made their Super Bowl run. It was dude, we won a playoff game. The rest of this is just this is house money at this point. Yeah. It's it's you're 10 beers deep playing roulette. You're just let it ride. Just keep it on black. You know what I mean? So yeah, the closer we get to it, and Philadelphia finished on Sunday. They finished that game really well, but they didn't play particularly well up until about midway through the fourth quarter, and they kind of closed it out with a Saquon run and stuff like that. But, they gave up a lot of points to an offense that really isn't that good. I mean, I know Matthew Stafford's Matthew Stafford, but that's probably got to be worrisome too. It's like, okay, you gave up that to that offense. Like Washington's on a bit of a roll on the offense side of the ball. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know how. I haven't seen any reports, but Jalen Hurts got dinged up late in that game, got his knee pinned under him and twisted. So if he's not as mobile, like that takes a big part of their offense away. Because I think I saw some stats where basically on more than 50% of the pressures allowed, they got a sack on him.
Yeah,
he basically just inviting sacks right now.
Yep.
And the passing game looks broken. It's if they're able to just contain Barkley a little bit, and Washington takes care of the ball on offense like they have been, I mean, there's a really clear path I think for them to get through.
Yep, I 100% agree. They're likable. Like Dan Quinn's a likable coach. I mean, he's got the backwards hat. I know probably some people that are a little older than us probably think that's stupid, but I like it. Like he seems like a player's coach. And it just further proves how much of a dumbass Jerry Jones is, letting him slip out of that building like that. So
yeah, I'm curious to see. I mean, this is Dan Quinn's second go round. He took the Falcons to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, he just seems like a really good coach. Like you said, I will say the backwards hat, I think there's a statute of limitations on the backwards hat. You can only be so old and wear a backwards hat.
Is it giving out Funkle vibes? Is that
kind of like Funkle or midlife crisis kind of vibes, But look, I'm here for the Commanders moving on though. I don't have anything against the Eagles. A lot of people don't like them. A lot of people hate Sirianni. I get it.
That's honestly, that's who I don't like. I don't have anything against Jalen Hurts. I actually like Jalen Hurts. Saquon played at Penn State, but I respect the player he is. He seems like a really good person too. It's just Nick Sirianni. I say this every time he has a stupid play call. I'm like, Nick Sirianni is like the guy that walks into a room and he just assumes he's the smartest guy in the room when actually he's in the bottom half of the smartest people in the room. It drives me insane. Drives me absolutely insane. So
yeah, I get that. Before we go to AFC, shout out to our guy Tyler in Tampa. He's a Giants fan. And all the Giants fans out there, you are watching two of your teams in your division play the NFC Championship game with your former running backs, setting records this year, and against the quarterback that you probably could have drafted. Just a tough scenes all around.
But so those scenes keep coming up from Hard Knocks or whatever, and they're like, can we just fire everybody and have a 12-year-old be the GM of the Giants? Because they'd probably still have Saquon and they'd probably have Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
God. Because his son was like, you should draft Jaden Daniels. And he was completely right about that. So
the best part, he's like, yeah, have you watched him play?
Yeah.
He's like, you only get one shot. You may as well try to win.
Oh my gosh. What a brutal! How bad is that aging for those guys in the front office?
Can you imagine having that on tape? That's forever. That's on the internet, man.
Forever, you are the biggest dumbass to ever walk into a GM office.
That's so tough.
And having your 12-year-old son, I think he's 12 or 13, can be completely right about everything, and you be so wrong.
Oh.
And I'm telling you, that's where it comes. It's sometimes you just got to go with your gut when it's stuff like that. I wish there would be more GMs that were like, well, why'd you do this? It just felt right. You know what I mean? And people will probably respect that more and being like, well, we broke it down. No, I don't know. We were bound between these two guys and this is who we went with because of the gut feeling. And it proves that they probably overthought it because, his son said that they should take him. So
it's crazy. Crazy. All right. On to the AFC. Of course, the Chiefs win again. Felt very gifted. We don't have to get into that, but
I think God, I don't even want to.
Troy Aikman and Joe Buck on the call are pretty much saying this is bullshit. I think we're at the end of the rope with the Chiefs. I think collectively as a nation, we are at the end of the rope.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd bring up on that is people, and it had me thinking back. It's It's like, did I hate the Patriots this much? And I was like, I did, but it was like all the opposite reasons. It was like, I hate them because they're so good. I hate them because they got these guys out here catching passes who were like quarterbacks in the MAC. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what pissed you off. You're like, why are they so good? You're like, it doesn't make any sense. That's why you hated them. It wasn't because Tom Brady got all these flags, and I'm sure he's gotten some favorable flags in his day, but not like this. It is not even close to what Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs get.
No, and it's like the way, to your point, like you could respect the Patriots even though you didn't like them or whatever.
Yes.
This team is just like incredibly unlikable.
Terribly unlikable.
Constantly begging for flags, trying to like goat people into like hitting him. Like when you're on this, like, no, we're just done. We're not doing
Well, and then like, look, I know Travis Kelce, you see Bearcat. He's so washed. I can't believe he had the game he had. He's so washed. Like, dude, he looked like a 50-year-old man running down the field on that one long pass play. Like, he is completely beat up. Like, he's done. And somehow the Texans give up 117 yards to him. I'm like, you can't guard a guy that moves like a 50-year-old? Like, what are we doing here?
I mean, it's just I don't think he's washed, but I'm like one of the few people left on that block. It's just like a playoff thing. Like they've found a way to manage it throughout the season to get to this point.
Yeah.
And I can respect that at least. But I will say, shout out to Trevor. He sent me a couple tweets from Warren Sharp. If anybody follows at,
I love, good follow.
He tweeted out that he had seen a crazy stat on ESPN that over the last 4 years, which the Chiefs have played 11 playoff games, 0 times in those games have the Chiefs had more penalties. And all 10 of the 11 games, their opponent had more penalties. So once they tied with somebody. And there's another table, which is kind of funny. He looked back at the teams that had at least, I think it was, every team that had at least 5 playoff games in that window. The Chiefs were like +9 in games that they won the penalty yards battle and +10 in games where they had fewer penalties called. The Bengals in that window they're dead last in net in both.
Oh my God.
They've lost that battle in 5 games on the yardage front and in 4 games on the penalty called front, which, not surprisingly, they played the Chiefs twice in that window. So,
good God,
it's just tough. I mean, it is what it is, but it's never not going to be frustrating. But I think it may be getting a point where like things could flip the other way potentially. Like I think
they try to overcorrect.
Yeah, like
is that what you're saying?
I feel like the heat that the officials were taking on the call from like the broadcast last week was probably the loudest I've ever heard it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, usually Troy Aikman's pretty good about that, where he usually keeps a level head. I think when it comes to calls, like he'd be like, he'll say something like, I didn't see much there, but like when he's just like, oh, come on, like you're like you could hear the frustration and when he did the flop along the sideline, it's like you're baiting him into it, and it's like, frankly, and maybe the playoffs is probably not the spot for this, but like in a regular season game, like if he's gonna do that,
just smoke him.
You're gonna get a flag probably more than not. Just light him up. Like if he's gonna hesitate like that and bait you into it, like, and you're a defensive lineman, just get your money's worth. I mean, it might as well. You're gonna get a flag anyway. Don't tap him. And honestly, that's what it's gonna have. That I feel like at this point, that's almost what it's gonna take for them to be like, okay, he's doing this. This is on him. Like, and then maybe they stop throwing flags on him because, like that one they called, he cut back to the middle of the field. Like, you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit. Like, you don't want to get hit, run out of bounds. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So.
And then the last thing on that game, too, I think I'm sorry if I get this wrong, but Adam Schefter tweeted out, too, that it was like, I think teams that had outgained their opponent by 100 yards and won the turnover battle were like 49-0 going into this weekend or something.
Yep.
And this was the one loss of those games.
Yeah.
And it just comes down to those few calls, right? And like that's
I mean, you think they essentially both of those bad penalties led to 10 points. Who knows if it's a super close game, like how it goes. I mean, like if it's tied, you don't know how it turns out. So it's kind of one of those things. And look, I'll give them credit because there's a lot of teams that get flags and they don't take advantage of them. When they get a flag like that, it almost seems like a guarantee that they are going to score on that drive.
Oh yeah, you can't give them.
It doesn't even matter. It could be on
more.
like the 20-yard line. It takes them to the 35, and I'm like, they're going to score on this drive, like guaranteed.
Yeah, you can't give them more lives than they've already got. That's the thing.
That's what I said, like, I think I tweeted out, I was like, look, if they're going to get flags like this, just skip the next 3 weeks. We don't even need to play them. They're going to win the Super Bowl if we're going to continue to get flags like that.
Yeah. So on to their opponent, and played against a team that won the yardage battle but lost the turnover battle, the Ravens. I mean, Mark Andrews just like a all-time bad beat situation. Like the fumble that he had across the middle when they were driving earlier in the game, and then the drop on the 2-point conversion. But the Ravens, like, uncharacteristic turnovers, and you're just not going to win games when you do that, especially when you're on the road in that kind of weather.
Yep. And yeah, Buffalo's an extremely hard place to play as it is. So,
yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, like, I was texting with a couple other buddies too. I'll say this, like, as a Bengals fan watching these teams in the playoffs, it's been like really frustrating because there's so many of them that don't like they don't play like an actual offense.
No.
It's like hero ball from your your elite quarterback or whatever, right? Like, I mean, Josh Allen, like, he's great. I'm not going to argue this. The Bengals didn't make playoffs. I have no leg to stand on. But, like, it's frustrating when it's just like, all right, we're just going to scramble. We're going to jam it home from the 2. We're going to have 200 yards of offense, and we're just going to get lucky on turnovers. And then Lamar is like, he's amazing. He's going to win his 3rd MVP. He had, like, one of the best seasons ever this year. But it's like, okay, I'm handing it off 30 times to Derrick Henry, or I'm going to just, like, buy time until someone's wide open. Like,
yeah.
There's no, like, actual, I don't know. That part drives me nuts about some of these teams. Same with Mahomes. Mahomes does the same stuff.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
I don't know. That's the frustrating
part.
And
then you see these games where it's like, how the season that, Joe Burrow had this year, and it's like most of the time it was like 270 to 320 passing, 4 touchdowns, and it's like you get a game like I think Josh Allen threw for like 140 yards on Sunday and they won. Like, how does that even happen? And you're like, if Joe Burrow threw for 140 yards and no touchdowns this year at any point, the Bengals would have lost by 5 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy when you see these stats and you're like, how the hell did they win this game? And like a Joe Burrow or whatever, you're like throwing for 300 yards and they're losing. So it is weird. Josh Allen he has to. He doesn't have a ton of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. James Cook is good. But outside of that, it's like, yeah, you got a bunch of, if they were on another team, they probably wouldn't even be on the roster, kind of thing. I don't know. And Lamar plays hero ball, but I can see the frustration from the Bengals like a Bengals fan standpoint. You're like offensively, we are leagues ahead of these teams, and somehow we're not here.
Yeah, it's just like that. That's why I'm drawn to the Commanders. Like, they're fun to watch. Like, It's not, other than like Lamar being electric and Josh Allen like bulldozing people, like, it's not always fun to watch to me.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to describe what I'm saying, but like, yeah, it's.
Well, I can tell you this: like an Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl, the way those two offenses are playing, it might be 10-6. It literally might be, because they've got 2 elite defenses and the offenses are just struggling to kind of find their way. You know what I mean? And they, the Eagles haven't been that way all year. It's just been recently, but the Chiefs offensively, they've only really had like 2 or 3 games where you're like, oh, like there's that offense. And then they go back into a hibernation mode of, not doing anything really spectacular. So,
yeah, I don't know that I could be wrong offhand, but I don't know if they scored 30 points this year. Maybe once.
I don't think they have.
Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe against the Texans on Christmas or whatever when they blew them out. Or
no, I think they won like 28-20 in that game. It wasn't that. It was like 8-point game. It wasn't a blow. Like, it was a lot worse. It was like 28-10 or something like that, and the Texans kind of made a little run, but I don't think they got the 30 in that game either.
Yeah. Okay. Well, prediction time. Eagles, Commanders. The Eagles are playing host. I'm gonna take the Commanders.
I am too. Yeah. I'm just going with my heart, trying to hope it into fruition here.
I honestly like. It is what I want. Like my heart's telling me that too, but like I legitimately think that they can
No,
win. Like
I agree with
logically, it
you.
would make sense. They've been a top 4 team by a lot of metrics all season long, and just because it was the Commanders with a rookie quarterback, like people discounted it, but they're here for a reason. So,
Yep.
and then on the AFC side, Chiefs hosting the Bills. I mean, I have to take the Bills. I can't. I think the Chiefs are going to win, but I'm
Yeah.
picking the Bills.
We're on the same page here. I just can't take the Chiefs. You know, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, look, Josh Allen is just he's gonna have to be Superman, and I think he can do that. So I've got to take the Bills there. So we're on the same page here. We want a Commanders Bills Super Bowl. I think that would be absolutely. I think it would be great for the fans too. I think people would love that Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, it'd be fun. It'd be super fun. 2 teams haven't been there for a long time. Bills have never won one. Like, yeah, that would be really good storylines for that one. All right. That's enough football for one episode. On to the golf. PGA Tour. Sepp Straka wins the American Express. That was by 2 shots over Justin Thomas, who got his first TGL win tonight as well. So
yeah,
listening tomorrow last night would be the answer to that. But tied for third, our guy Justin Lauer. And
dude, sneaky good start to the year for him too. By the way, like
definitely
played some good golf.
Another sneaky good start to the year, Jason Day with a T3. And then T5, Patrick Cantlay, and out of nowhere, Charlie Hoffman, who actually had a pretty good chance to win this one.
Yeah, he did.
For a while. So didn't catch much of the American Express, but we are on to Farmers Insurance Open, which at Torrey Pines, this is kind of like, to me, this feels like when the season is like, all right.
Now it's starting. Like,
Now it's starting. And that's probably because Tiger played it every year for so long and played so well at Torrey. But yeah, this feels like we're on now.
Yeah, I don't like the Amex too much. I hate the 5 rounds. I don't like it being on 3 different courses. It's no flow to it. It's not great. I'm not a big fan of the tournament we just went through.
Yeah.
Other than, are you going to talk? We got to talk about.
So a couple things. One, just to comment on Sepp Straka real quick. He's got 3 wins to go with 2 playoff losses, so potentially could have been up to 5 wins. He's made almost $20 million in his career already.
Holy crap!
Sepp Straka, $20 million on
ball striker, man. That guy can just flush. He is a flusher. Terrifies me coming up this year for the Ryder Cup. Terrifies me.
I mean, that's just one of those guys that you get him on the back end of the roster, and like in match play, just is going to be on the green all day long, right?
Yeah.
That's what keeps pressure on in match play. A lot of people think it comes down to making putts. It's about hitting greens.
Yeah, if you're hitting greens and it's like, guys start getting a little tight when they're like, God dang, like, we're on the 10th hole, guy hasn't had a chip yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So yeah, that's just wanted to tie a bow on Sepp Straka there. But I mean, if we were still doing the Who Needed the Back 9 6-pack award, this would be the Hall of Fame Memorial Award winner right here. William Mouw on Friday, hole 16, which to anybody who maybe doesn't know much about that course, this one famously has like a giant, massive.
Yeah, I think it's 23 feet drop off or something. It's over 20 feet.
Yeah, there's a bunker along the left side of a par 5 green, and it's got a huge 20 plus foot drop off. So like if you're down there, it's
dead.
And William Mouw found out the hard way that it was indeed dead. He made a 13. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you have on social media, but go seek it out and just watch the shot by shot.
Nightmare fuel, by the way.
The growing frustration of the announcers throughout was what really made it for me. I mean, they were just like apoplectic by the end of it. The best part was when he gets to I think it's his 9th shot, and he's down in the bunker again, and he finally decides to chip out backwards.
Yeah.
Fairway. To give himself a good look at a quick wedge under the green, and then he thins that over the green and then chips it back down into the bunker.
Well, I like the one where it's he had the chip over the green and he hits it back into the bunker. His caddy's still down there raking. He's like, stay down there, bro. Coming back down.
I mean, that truly is evil. To have to hit it up over that hill
it's not a big green either.
No. And so if you go past the pin, you're chipping back downhill towards that wall. So
I know.
I mean,
His
You're
one
like,
chip
shit.
shot, I'm like, that's going to stay on. And it just like trickled off all the way down. I was like, damn,
That's just so
that's a tough. And did you see Johnson Wagner? He went out there and hit some
Yeah.
bunker shots. And the whole time, like I'm watching the replay. I'm just like, Johnson Wagner hit like a shank thin up the hill. Like it rolled up the hill and stayed on the green. I'm like, right, he's got to shank it at this point. They can like no spin on it, just keep it up there. So
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, good reminder to like, you know what? If you're in that bunker, he was lane 2. Like, chip it out then. Go backwards then.
yeah, take your medicine, go back.
Try to make par. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been down there forever too. This did have me curious though. Like, what's the highest score you ever had on a hole in a tournament round?
I had a 12 on a par 3.
I had a 13 on a par 3. What's your story?
So mine was at TPC Rivers Bend here in Cincinnati, junior AM qualifier. It was hole number 7. It's only like 160 yards. There's a lake that kind of comes out in front of it, and I hit my first one in. My brother's caddying for me, by the way. Hit my first one in. Get to the drops, dude. I just got I got the chunks. Like I chunked. So I was like, so I'm hitting 3 in, drop 4, hitting 5, 5 in, drop 6, hitting 7, 7 in, drop 8, hitting 9. I hit 9 on the green, and then 3 whacked it. 10, 11, 12. Boom. Just like that. It went fast. Holy crap. Everything was moving so fast.
That's how it goes. So mine, it was also, it was sophomore year of high school. I think this was like the St. X Invitational or something. It was out at Hickory Sticks. I don't even know if it exists anymore. It was out in Loveland. Or Hickory Woods.
Still there.
Hickory Woods. Sorry.
Yeah, Hickory Woods still there. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a par 3 that's really downhill there. It's only like 140 yards.
Yeah, I know what hole you're talking about already. I can already see how this can go sideways too.
It's probably like 2 clubs worth of downhill. Like it's
at least.
downhill.
Yeah, it's pretty far downhill.
But there's like a small creek behind it that's like pretty like wooded.
Yes. Yeah.
So I went a little too far, and I'm on the edge of this creek up against a root, and I'm like, I can get this out. Like I just gotta like whack it and it'll go. Hit the thing, barely goes anywhere, rolls back into the creek. Couldn't drop anywhere. Like I had to go to the backside of the creek, and I'm literally just firing punch shots through the trees trying to get it through, and it's just in the water, until I finally get one over, and then like I made like a 30-footer for 13.
Oh my god!
Like just disastrous.
And horrible. How fast does things start moving when stuff like that starts happening? Like
I thought I was gonna run.
You can't like you want to make the right decision, but like you almost can't at that point. Like you're just like a mental block. You're like, no, like I'm pot committed to this point of doing this. Like we've got to just keep trying. Like I know I've been there. There.
And I'm like I'm a 15-year-old JV golfer. My coach isn't anywhere nearby. Like I'm just trying to figure this out on the fly.
Yeah.
Playing with people I don't know, and they're just like, yeah, I guess you got to keep hitting it.
Gotta keep hitting it. Yeah.
Like, can we get like a double par situation or something?
Yeah. Well, we do play double. Like when I coached JV, it was double par. It's like, yeah, gotta pick it up. Like let's keep this thing moving. But yeah, it does. It's so crazy how like so many shots can go by so quickly when something like that's going on.
Yeah, it's truly like a blackout situation. Alrighty, one and done. So for Amex, we had Sam Burns. I talked you into that T29, which is a decent bounce back for almost missing the cut.
Man, we needed one coming in. He gets one coming in and barely makes it on the cut line.
Just did not do much of anything. He drove it like shit on Saturday, which was the day to make the cut. So like that just was kind of dead to us. Your guy, Keith Mitchell, T14, obviously would have been a better choice for us, but hey, we are where we are. We picked up $57,640. We are in 1,463rd place with $252,665. That's like the top quarter of the field right now. So we're hovering. We're good. This week, Farmers Insurance Open. You got anybody that comes to mind? Because I think we have one question we have to ask ourselves.
Steven Yeager.
Okay. I don't hate this. We had good vibes with Yeager last year. I think we didn't get his win, but we got like a top 3 out of him.
Yeah, he tied like T3 out of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just such a reliable guy. Like he's like he had that. I think he broke it last year, but he had a cut streak going for, I think it was like 13 or 14 tournaments. He made the cut in a row. So there's a very high floor for him in terms of taking him, and he played well here last year. He was in the final group last year on Sunday.
Yeah, he had a T3 here last year, and he's coming off of a T3 at the Sony Open as well. Just kind of drove it wonky on Sunday, or else he probably should have won the Sony Open, to be honest with you. I don't hate it. The question I was going to ask, the only question I thought we had to answer this week is like, are we going to burn Ludwig or not? Like, do we plan to use Ludwig at a major or an elevated event?
I don't want to burn him here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
His form obviously is elite. His last year was his first time playing the tournament. He finished T9. I think the problem is the pot's not very big this week.
That's why I'm like a Steven Yeager. It's like, okay, yeah, can we take him somewhere else? Maybe. But it's like he's got such a high floor. He played well here last year. He's playing well now, coming off the Sony.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down to ride with you on Yeager on this one. I think he might be somewhat popular, but it's still early enough not to worry about it, and it's not a big pot. So if he screws us, he screws us, kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
Let's holster Ludwig, I think, for down the road with the bigger pool. All right, Steven Yeager, the official one and done pick for the back 9 6-pack this week. And with that, just a couple quick TGL notes. We don't have to get into this because it just happened a bit ago. Like I said, Atlanta Drive got a victory tonight over New York Golf Club. Absolute shambles for New York Golf Club. 0-2 to start the season.
Tough.
Xander's hurt. That's a thing. But last week, your Los Angeles Golf Club
domination.
Beat down Jupiter Links 12-1. But you got to watch out. Morikawa withdrew with an injury this week. Who knows what that could look like?
I don't know. Look, the LA Golf Club has. I'm pretty sure the only guy that takes this dead serious in Sahith, he is looking like the only guy that is like no prisoners. Like some of those guys are out there having fun. Like he's having fun, but like he's taking this very seriously. So good. I don't hate that.
Yeah, you just if you get another injury though, I don't know what that looks like. So we'll have to watch that closely. But yeah, my God. It looks like it is officially a hobby for kids.
He is officially a weekend warrior, I think.
Man, like from like the fatting it, just leaving stuff short.
Almost look, that ball was going to murder somebody on the other side unless it hit the pin.
Somebody with that thin shot out of the bunker that hit the pin. I mean, all time, like that's going to be like probably the moment of the TGL season is that, unless like I don't know, Tiger makes an ace or something and whatever, but. That was incredibly funny. I mean,
you saw them; they were dying laughing. They just thought it was hilarious.
Tiger and Max's reaction was like priceless. Oh my God, it was so good. And then for him to almost chip in, that just made it even better. But yeah, that was fun. So I don't know. We'll see. I didn't get to catch tonight's action.
I didn't either.
We'll check back in next week. So yeah. With that, we are on to fan mail. Been a minute since we got some fan mail. Shout out to everybody that wrote in here. We'll start with my former neighbor and Ryan's current neighbor, Tom Soresi. He wrote in about the fictional deaths. So this is something I didn't know. So this was a spoiler. I don't care. Don't worry about it, Tom. I'm not worried about having this spoiled for me. But he couldn't believe they killed James Bond in the last Bond movie. And nice little tongue-in-cheek one-liner here. His question, who gave anyone the license to do so?
I like that.
It's a nice touch, Tom. Good one there. He also shouted out Petey the Bird from Dumb and Dumber. Which,
yeah. It's always animals, bro. It's always animals.
Yeah, Baxter and Anchorman, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
tough one to get over too. So yeah, thanks for that, Tom. That was good. Next one, Tyler in Tampa. Second shout out for him. Wrote in about a couple different things from last week. He definitely agrees with us that Miller High Life is the number one on the underrated beer front for domestics. And he claims possibly the number one cheap beer when you get it on draft. That's kind of hard to argue.
Not wrong.
massive agreement with me on the Yingling is overrated take. I'm glad I got somebody else on the block with me. I've had too many blocks I've been by myself on lately. Deaths for him that cause trauma, both of them from movies. He shouts out Howard Ratner from Uncut Gems. I haven't seen Uncut Gems yet. Have you seen that?
No, I have not.
No. So he says the way that it plays out in the storyline is what causes the trauma. So I'll have to watch that and report back.
Yeah, I've never seen that. No.
And then his last one's more of just a jab at me. He calls out Maximus from Gladiator, which clearly I don't know anything about because I've never seen Gladiator.
I did remember one. Tom Hanks dies at the end of Saving Private Ryan. Can't remember his character name. Pretty tough loss. You know, the whole story is based around him and the guy he saves because all of his brothers passed away.
Yep.
And then he get, you know, the whole story is him at his grave or whatever. That's a tough one. Yeah, I thought of that right off after we got off. I'm like, oh man, that's a good one too.
Yeah, my mom texted me too and listed off a ton of them. A lot of Disney movie ones like we talked about. She mentioned Bubba from Forrest Gump. Tough scene. R.I.P. Bubba. So yeah, that's like I said, we got some good call outs on that one too.
And you know, some would say Jenny from Forrest Gump.
Yeah, also tough, but
no, she is a low key villain in that movie. Okay,
yeah, maybe high key.
Guy gets rich, you know, like now she wants to be with him. You know what I mean? It's like, come on.
Yeah, that's fair.
Be better, Jenny.
All right, and then last one here. Shout out to our guy John Hudson, longtime listener. He's must be doing some traveling here in the near future because his question's about golf travel bags. One, he wants to know if we know or have any recommendations for a budget-friendly one. And then, do we recommend hard case or soft case?
I've had a soft one. I've had a hard one now. Hard one is 100% the way to go.
Yeah.
Almost a 0% chance your clubs are going to get broken. Mine is like a luxury one. I got it for free. Shout out to John, who's been on this show before. His dad flies for NetJets. Randomly got like 3 of these things for free. I ended up with one of them. The thing's a freaking beast. But I just looked it up. Actually, I looked it up before we got on here because I saw the question. You can get a Samsonite one. It's like the one just below the one I have. I think mine was like $500 or $600. They have a hard case Samsonite on Amazon right now for like $231. And I can tell you, like $231 to guarantee that none of your clubs are going to get broken, and $90 and for a soft case, I think it's a no-brainer. So that's kind of my take on it.
I'm with you, especially with the price of golf clubs now, like gone up astronomically.
Or just even shafts. Like think about the shaft in your driver breaking. Like that could be $200 right there. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. So a couple tips on that front too. Now I don't know, John, if you end up going with the soft sided one, definitely get like the stiff arm to go in it. That like.
Yeah, you have to have that. If you're going to soft, if
you go that route, get that because that'll prevent your driver, your woods from being like the top of the bag. But also take your club heads off your woods. Any club you can take the club head off, take it off, put it in your golf bag along with your towels and stuff to protect those, and then flip your shafts, put those the shaft tip down, into your bag. That'll help protect that as well.
Yeah, and I always travel with an air tag in mine just in case.
That's a big thing now too. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely with me going to Scotland, I'm making sure that I've got one in there. Like it just if they get lost, you like at least have like a peace of mind of knowing where they're at. Instead of the airline being like, well, they checked in Seattle, but we don't know where they're at now. Like, you know what I mean? So air tag's definitely the way to go. Hide it in your golf bag. Don't put it somewhere that's findable. Because if someone does steal them, like they might not be smart enough to like search around in like a small pocket in your golf bag. So,
right, yeah, good call out there. Damn, now I'm like, that just gave me the travel bug.
I know. God, so funny story. So like we go to a basketball game tonight. We're sitting next to guys from Scotland, and the guy's giving me the whole rundown. He's just like, there's a reason bars close at 10 o'clock over there because if they were open till 2, no one would be alive.
Yeah.
It has me hyped. Like if 50% of the people are like him, I'm gonna have an absolute freaking blast over there.
Yeah, I've not been to Scotland, but from probably a somewhat similar experience being in Ireland, like the people make it incredible.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm sure you're going to experience
100%.
that as well. All right, with that, even though it is what 1 degree out right now, we're heading to the patio.
Back. I mean, yeah, 1 degree. I think it's like what -10 wind chill right now. It is just fucking brutal outside.
Yeah, you know it's bad when you wake up and you have the alert that's like it's basically just like a severe cold warning where if your wind chills make it that you could get frostbite within like 30 minutes, basically
Yep.
what it said. So
Yep.
not
Well,
great.
it's funny. I tell people this all the time. I'm like, us Midwesterners, we are tough because the winters make you tough. Like they make you gritty. You don't even have to try to be gritty, and you become gritty because when you have to live through weather like this for 3 months, it's not fun.
I mean, I'm tired of being gritty. Get me
Like,
the hell out of here.
It makes you a tougher person. It really does.
Yeah, I just like it's been like 3 straight weeks. I don't even know how long the snow's been on the ground for forever. And at this point, like just walking out to take my trash out, like that entire side of the house is just like ice by now. It's like compacted and like half melted and then it froze again and all this shit. I'm just like I'm waiting for the moment where I have like that I'm gonna fall.
Yeah. Well, my neighbor probably thinks I'm like the worst parent in the world. He's like, "You're not gonna drive your kid down to the bus stop this morning?" I'm like, "Nah, it builds character." Like,
oh man. All right. Well, golf couldn't be far enough from or farther away than it feels like right now. So,
yeah.
We'll go to the fictional indoor patio here for a patio beer segment. I'll go first.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you have it.
Piggybacking off of John's question here, I was just thinking about like what is one of the most underrated like golf purchases you've made? Like something that's outperformed what you thought it would for having bought it.
Man, that's such a good question because I think there's like so many things that I've bought that I'm like man, I was like 10 years ago I would never bought, right? Like, I just like didn't need it. The first thing that comes to my mind is like the ski mask, like the ski, like the coverall ski mask. Like I'm like $10 at Costco. Like, do I really need it? I've used it a lot on the golf course. It's crazy. Like I use it in 50-degree weather out in Vegas because you want to keep the wind off your skin. And it's just gonna tear you up. I wore it out there. Like I've worn it so many times golfing that I'm like, I didn't think I was going to use it that much, and I ended up using it a lot. Trying to think of another one. I mean, probably, I guess if you had asked me this 15 years ago, I'd told you you're crazy, but like a rangefinder, you know what I mean? Like, dude, 15 years ago, I'm like, I don't need a rangefinder. And then, now I'm like, oh my God, like my battery runs out. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? It's like, I have no idea.
Yeah. You stole my number one. Cause same thing. Like I have the same rangefinder that I bought like my senior year of high school. So we're talking 15, 16 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And like back then it was like kind of like a newer thing. Like we didn't really,
it was like a luxury, that kind of thing.
And like, I mean, I truly like when the battery goes out, you're like, oh shit, I gotta like walk off yardages again. And like, you kind of forget like what you used to have to do before it. But yeah, what I've gotten out of that thing from buying it from so long ago, yeah, I can't imagine playing golf without it now.
It's funny. I was playing in a tournament 3 years ago now, Ohio AM qualifier out at Dayton Country Club. And like, I'm in the mix to make the cut and my battery runs out on 16 and like, like the kid's like, he's like, one of the caddies like, I don't think he can let you use his because I'm like, I don't think he can either. So I'm like, I'm just gonna do this the old fashioned way. Like I'm walking it off. I'm looking at the pen sheet. I'm like, all right, take the. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing it by hand. He's like, I don't even know if I know how to do that. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're 18 years old. Your whole life you've had rangefinder. So like, this is what we used to have to do in the old days. It's like walk it off. Get a pin location and how many plus and minus it is on the green.
Yeah.
Like, but you lose. Like, it took me a second. I'm like, I used to be able to do it super fast, and I hadn't had to do it in a while. I'm like, shit. I'm like, okay, how do I do this? I'm like, all right, this is center. Well, I had to look at the scorecard to make sure most of them are to the center, but there are some courses that are like, this is to the front of the green or whatever. Like every yardage is to the front of the green. So like I had to remember to look at that. So it was, you take it for granted. You really do.
Yeah. So that was one. Another one that actually I got two more. One, I never owned a push cart until I joined over at the Elks like 5 years ago. I've gotten so much out of that thing.
Yeah.
For what I spent for it and for never having one before. I just think like, especially during that time, like I joined right when COVID was starting, so it was like kind of had to walk at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me like I hadn't walked since high school really. Like that walking golf is elite. Like that's the way to do it.
It's how golf was meant to be played. I mean, I know I ride a decent amount. I tried to walk. I walked more last year, but I try to walk when I can. But it's how golf meant to be played. And my push cart, shout out to Cody, when I became a member at our course 6 years ago, he was like, dude, like a bunch of us walk. Like, you really want to? I'm like, I'll walk. I'm like, he's like, you're not going to carry your bag. He was at a Play It Again Sports and ran across this like really nice pull cart for like $60. I still have it. Thing's kicking still. I mean, it was a good purchase for what I mean. I'd have spent now that how many times I've used it, I would have spent $300 on it instead of 60. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean that's one, and then the other one I had, like I've talked about in our Turkey Open stuff. Nick and I finally invested in a cart cover this year.
It's crucial.
And like, it just was truly a game changer. Like if you're gonna be playing any winter golf, you just do it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I do have another one. I was a blade putter I had a blade putter for the better part of 17 years and switched to a mallet 3 years ago. And I'm like, don't even know how I putted before I had a mallet putter. And honestly, I was skeptical about it to start out with. I'm like I'm like a big loser out here with a mallet putter, but now I'm like, I don't think I could go back. I've tried to go back to a blade putter. I'm like, holy crap, how do I ever even make a putt with this thing? They just seem easier to keep on line, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good reminder of like getting fit and stuff too, right? Where it's like you at some point you have to check your own ego a little bit.
Yeah,
in golf, and I mean that's a good example of that. Is like, you were like, oh, blade is how I play. It's what I have. You probably had a certain attachment to that. That was just like you said, like, no, these mallets are dumb or whatever. But
yeah.
Turns out it was what you probably needed. So.
Yep. Exactly.
All right, what do you got?
All right, so I think I was talking to this week. We were kind of chatting about this. So if you could take one golfer from any point and put them in today's game right now, who would that be?
Just from like an entertainment perspective?
Entertainment or like in their prime, right? Like that they're playing their best golf. Yeah. It could be for entertainment value. It could be for just because like, hey, I'd like to see how good they actually were against these guys compared to what they played before. I've got a couple in mind, one for entertainment and one for just like, I would love to see how it would play out.
Yeah, I mean, the first name that came to mind, and I never even watched this guy play or anything, but Lee Trevino, just from like an entertainment perspective.
Yep.
And I think honestly, his game probably would translate. Like if you get him the newer equipment, he was a cutter. Like I think it would translate. But yeah, purely just because I want another personality like his back in the game.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, for personality, like because I think the one thing we lack, I don't think we lack talent, right? I think we lack just personalities. Yeah. So that's why I was like, I think peak John Daly, like when he was playing good, mm-hmm. and he was, he won 2 majors, playing right now is probably exactly what we need in the game. It's like you got this guy that's like good enough to win, but he's also like a mega personality off the course. I think it'd be interesting to see him in today's game at his peak.
Yeah, it'd be curious. I'd be curious to see like what his distance, like how his distance translates over to like
That's the other
today's.
thing
You
I
know
was
what I
thinking
mean?
about too. Yeah, I was like, dude, he was like one of the first guys hitting a 320
Yeah.
with like, like the old burner TaylorMades, right? It's like,
Mhm.
what would he do with the drivers today? I think he would be Rory long or even longer. It would be my guess.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if he was like a Bryson level. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and probably honestly, yeah, because
yeah,
I mean he swung so hard at the ball, and his body doesn't move like that anymore. But you see some of these replays of his swings, like fuck, the club's about to touch the ground, like on his backswing, like that's how far he was taking it back. So for an entertainment thing, I went with him, but for me, from a talent standpoint, I'd love to see how Gary Player would translate in today's game.
interesting.
Uh, I think he's like an elite athlete. Like he's still in really good shape for his age. Kind of fits the mold of these guys that are like taking care of their body. He was kind of one of the first guys to do that, really, being like ultra fit shape. Um, I'd like to see what how his game translated to in today's terms.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting one too.
Well, I think too is like you could probably, I think anybody that was like an elite ball striker with the clubs they had back in the day. I mean, you like Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan, like the flushers, but like they're flushing it with a golf club that is like
Mhm.
smaller than the ones we had or smaller than the ones we have now. I think would be pretty interesting to see what kind of ball strikers they would be with this, this newer technology.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see like if a guy like like Seve, right? Like who was like a creative golf genius and
Yep.
didn't really play stock shots, or like how would his game look with today's equipment that's like designed to like just make you hit it long and straight. Like
Yeah.
could he do what he was able to do back then with
Yeah,
today's
you
stuff?
you you can't move the ball. Like it's really hard to move the ball now.
Yeah.
And guys like that, and I think that's part of like Bubba's downfall is like the technology now, like it just doesn't fit what he wants to do with the golf ball. It's harder to do. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see something like that. Yeah, Sevi was kind of one of those creative golf shot makers. Never the ball never went the same direction every time. Yeah, that would be interesting to see in today's game, I think. But the
Yep.
flushers, I think, would be fun. Like, some of these guys that just were just ultimate, like we still teach their swings today. I think it would be really cool to see like what they would do with, you know, a Titleist T150 iron that like is super forgiving. It's like I think it'd be pretty crazy.
Yeah, the last one I'll mention too that came to mind was Johnny Miller, because I think he was like pretty underrated for how much of a flusher he was.
Flusher, yeah,
Uh, and he also had a little bit of flair and personality to him too, kind of an edge. And he's someone that we know more of as an announcer, right? Because that's just who we grew up with. But I think I would have liked to see him in his prime too.
yeah, and he had putting issues too,
And
and
that could be
and so it's
resolved with
like
some of these
does he go
better.
to a broomstick? Does he go to yeah, what? I think they just didn't have a lot to teeter with back then, so it was like I'm just going to try to struggle it out with this putter.
Mhm.
It would be interesting, like look what the broomstick did for Lucas Glover. I mean, it essentially brought him back to what he was 10 years prior because he was always a good ball striker. Um, but he became an average putter with that and kind of revamped his career a little bit. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting thought exercise to end on here.
yeah. I thought we started talking about it. Somebody I was like, John Daly is the first one that came to mind. Like,
Yeah.
I think his personality in today's game, like, I just don't know if like Xander's paired with him in like the Sunday of a U.S. Open, how he's going to be able to handle that, that amount of like charisma.
I know. That's why same for me with Trevino. Same thing, just like a huge personality.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Please, again, subscribe, rate, review the show, smash the like button. Got to learn how to say that. And follow us on social media at Back96Pack, and hopefully you guys shoot us some fan mail too. That'd be good. Let us know about those underrated golf purchases and whose game you want to see translate to today's. Let us know on those. But until next time, cheers.
Go Bucks.